Alright, here we go.
Nope, I didn't. I took video of the street.
That's Mikey
We're taking a walk.
Avenue, Madison, Wisconsin, Dane County, making threats. And see, that's where
I took video of
their
the street.
Lane McGraw and their friend Cisneros were being inserted through Mikey's house. Their drug-using buddy, abusing his parents and things. Now that they're gone, who are decent and living off them, now they were using them to insert their criminals, like they said, the web arson fire, and that was Maria Perez, and at the Cora Funmaker's niece, Loretta Patterson's daughter, as are Camilla, Daniel J, and Edwin T. Remember Camilla District, their Boys and Girls Club with June Garvin and them? And that's how I was showing you their cronies. The other one at 406 with Eugene at Stock and Lock Storage and Vegas, the human trafficking and storage and things, theft of service, and part of their criminal network, like the rest, in this community that needs to be removed. They're racketeers. That was his buddy at 406. So that's where they were inserting to create disturbances, light the fire, to shoot at us, etc. And that's why the neighborhood cop, they replaced Bijan and Lester Moore with their gang. And so that's why they would park there, and that's where he came from, walking up. Not at the neighborhood watch apartment the night of the fire, and he bypassed all the doors, including one who can't speak English among, and went right to their Lindsay's door, their Chicago heroin gang drug runner, throwing dope heroin and stuff that Mahoney and them were trying to stop. And Koval was assisting them, and this is still continuing, having me beaten by Heimsness, who is in charge of the armory, terrorizing us, instead of rescuing my rape rental bigamous marriage that their correctionals knowingly perpetrating and misusing authority to secure our activist, tribal, and officials' family whose works they're feeding upon, and whose family members, that's the point of making rape children and captive taking by their gang at the school, too, and in public housing that they've been moving in, and their controlled crime spree, procuring, pimping, pandering children and us in surrogacy, and their drugs too, city heroin and crack, and the Carter Ferguson Sykes and Blues, and that was my unit that they then murdered after looting, putting me there, kidnapping me from the VA as Alan Rick McGraw's spouse, that they know for a fact I am not, and our cronies with Mosier, Shelley Gaylord, and these others who are knowingly committing court fraud and setting a criminal network, and Koval is running assistance and protecting and assisting them in unlawful policing and enforcing shakedowns, etc., and murder. That is a fact. And you still keep retaliating, you're still a danger, and that's my third vehicle. You are fraudulently targeting Koval, your judge brother, is in your ticket schemes to deprive us of our licenses to be able to get around and get to the doctor, and for theft of our vehicles that are not abandoned, and to mark them out for your criminals to assault as well, insurance fraud, etc. Falsely arrest, separate, and set your criminals over our children, and you're misusing your dual MPD FBI roles, and you still are. That's what this community policing is, and that's why I sent that video out. When you keep looting and moving us around and taking over and extorting the apartments with Gorman, and that with your illegal Enbridge, Hickston, Sanfrac, and my Menominee relatives, Wolf River. So through our children and stuff, you have an unlawful occupying threat of harm. And that's not what the police is for. And what I also am showing is your dereliction, failing to render aid, and I also showed about the caught girl too, and Hyler holding her on the porch. And I showed you then moving us here, the crimes on Tara Cloud and her goods scattered here, that you, and like Christine, she and Stephanie and Mary Green, a.k.a. Lynn M. Green as she's now known, Tim Brewer, Andy Height, his ex-wife and his future wife, Rebecca Bradley, had your Chicago Youth Sanctuary Cocaine Club and your drug addicts feeding off of all. You usurped and have spent too much time with your Stephenson, McGraw, O'Brien, Racketeer, Sinaloa, etc. Yeah, feeding off of our programs and setting up your criminals. So we're going to get into that too, and that's why I took everybody on a tour, Kova, and you destroying and marking out 3 vehicles and your fraudulent arrests and disorderly, your fraudulent community policing, and then right here, your gang's blight. And you are not supposed to be supervising. Instead, just like at the housing when they were holding me, a sexual assault victim through my VA care, that's what your case management is about, to forcibly traffic for control. Okay, by known criminals with felony incest, neglecting of their own, and multiple venues and multiple public records for very serious crimes. And they don't have the right to be holding our children and setting themselves as a welfare. And yeah. So here's what I also have is you are letting them also hold me without utilities in the wintertime, pregnant in a cast in that housing. And since you are all illegally swatting me and letting Horst and Jennifer and them, and you are also stalking at Fenimore, the State Fair, etc., so therefore, you're knowingly letting them keep me in those conditions and failing to render aid and legitimate protection. And the same with the caught girl. And you were stalking. And that video I did get out. I did get out to you stalking and my leading you to the caught girl's house, where the caught girl is being held on the Greens porch. And they're stalking at the bus stop and things. And MPD. And also you're filtering and then sending MPD to beat, threaten us, etc. on your fraudulent mental health checks, that's what they really consist of. Okay? And I also have June and them extorting for their drug support, and I have your sheriff's infestation too. You were calling off on Mahoney, you and Mosier's. Officer Stewart, Professor Pervert Matthew, Judge Daniel Mosier, and Officer Section 8 Tom and Tabitha Conrad, just like Eric, Attorney Bill, Brendan, and Mayor Conway. And also, it's not cute to have Brent Fowler here and there, and as the maintenance crew with Chris Ring, and his relatives Deputy K9, and Uncle Officer Detective Bill and Dr. Linda Hendrickson, shaking down elderly tenants, besides embezzling the rent, using the sheriff's office, badge, uniform, etc. And that's why you need to be replaced, and you actually need to be arrested. And this is why I've made a point of sending it to the other state patrols too, your pipeline, and the extortion of us. Cruising up and down I-94. And I also showed them about your safe harboring with Jenny Ginsburg and Lacey Mandel, who represent Alan, Rick, and Ryan Lee McGraw, and their mother, Lorna Garwood, Stephenson McGraw Garwood, Clara Stephenson Barton Landon, Nola Stephenson Araby. You see that? And I also told about Horst, Fawn, Realtor, Iris, O'Brien, and who are Lorna's and their relatives, Jim Stephenson, and your fraudulent contracting, including Bill Batley's convictions too, and his code name, the Tony the Tiger, when he was seeing Lynn McNerland. Yeah, and your Smith sexual abuse of women, veterans, and everything else. I'm not impressed with your community policing and your false SWAT, and we're also getting into Lulu Ferguson and Christine and that, just like with your false maintenance, and this is your gang, just like on Webb, parked out on ours in the building next door, harassing us, at intimidating and trying to make blights, and sitting there at 11 o'clock at night with the windows shut. Nobody's a guest, nobody's on the lease, but you're abusing housing programs and abusing to keep us in captivity and subjugated to your abuse and blight and things. And that's your Chris Ring, Brent Fowler, Fowlers, and MG&E, etc., etc. So you and Andy's plumbing crew with your Bradley Foundation Coke Club is over. So I thought that State Patrol and security and the others needed to see that. And your squad car parked across the street, and your Brita Parkway security with your DOC house, just like your sex offender one, and your setup with Department of Corrections, that Horst and my cousin Teresa Armstrong and all of them are on paper and supposed to be supervised. Instead, you're supervising their crimes and blacking them out for that to take place and saying that crimes aren't occurring because you're refusing to take reports and filtering out and sending your mental health policing crew to assault us. And I also showed about the threats there you have in Missoula lean on Darren Bormet. Their attempts to secure and peddle Verena Bell's children, and you're all forcibly drug involving with your Boys and Girls Club and everything. And there's Brita Parkway Security, or DOC, across the street and failing to render aid, and our phone's not working so that we can call for help. So, no. We've been working around your infestations of your criminal network and letting the public see and the proper authorities see for themselves. Okay? So you are not holding me. You are frauding. You have looted, sexually abused me, made rape children incested, and you're harboring that. And Safe Harbor Jenny represents their cartel. And remember Ryan's cocaine video store? That was a computer store there. Remember him and Ryan in Costa Rica? And that was Lacey Mandel and Sykes right here. Isn't that sweet? After looting and displacing your threats, and here we are at that same thing with your fraudulent interventions, and Christine threatening me, we're going to talk your case manager. And I don't think that's how I was showing the VA being involved in case managing sexual assault and trafficking of women veterans, etc. Oh yeah. Okay, that's real cute, isn't it? You're a real patriot. But yeah, so there this is. So we've been sending that around. And the same with Brent trying to harm us and everything here. And then you looting and misusing the sheriffs, having us fraudulently pulled over and calling me by my name out of a whole line of traffic, rush hour traffic in the evening. Yeah, from the hotel you try to do a snatch and grab. Okay. We're not disappearing, it's all out there, so even so. They will not be trafficking my children, and I'm not Melissa McGraw or anything else, and you had no right to do this. None of you did. And that's why, and you know what? Tammy Baldwin isn't going to avoid our citizens' petition of redress, and neither are the others, for hers and their crimes on us. Because remember, she was racketeers on the Wisconsin-Iowa boarding. And that's what I've been showing, the connections and obituaries and everything else. With Lorna and their O'Briens, including Mike O'Brien ODing, and your activities on Oak Park Terrace, where Ozzy and Shorty, who retired from Oscar Mayer, with Roy Darnell. Yeah, and targeting Larry Hogger and John Lynch by Arnie and their other embezzler and abusers with June and cokeheads. And I do have the coke pictures of June and Cinda Armstrong Maynard, who's her actually relative, LaCour DeRay. June's a Garvin by marriage. And then there's Cecil on WEC Energy too. So here you are depriving of utilities in the winter, failing to render shelter and aid, displacing, and the other crimes, okay? So there that is. And you running supervision for that. So yeah, I know. And Mosier threatening to bury me, so bury me where? In your Wingra stone quarry? Gorman's, what about Pam Gorman, Richland Center, and Justin, Jason, and Michael, and Richard Emilio, felony incest ring? Gloria Caravello, Woodward, Lynch Emilio? And that's what I was showing about Woodward and Matthews, too. Yeah. So yeah, and you endlessly running my plates, and that's what I couldn't figure out, why we couldn't renew our plates. And you're constantly making up new tickets, and there are criminals running into my car after you mark it out with fraudulent tickets. And then before we made you aware, there you are retaliating. Again and again. Well, guess what? So that's what triggered me to do a release for Blooming Grove, Monona, and then I went to where Barbara Darnell Goodbear in New Lisbon, Wisconsin, and La Crosse, and Catherine Rawson, and Gail Darnell, and Johnny Beta Border Patrol, Capitol Motel, sexual assault of the same child, Badger Trailer Court with Barb Journal, Lucky Coleman, Smith relatives of the Darnell and Junes and them. Smith's there, Smith's in Arkansas. Healthcare fraud, medical kidnapping, sexual trafficking, and surrogacy. Yeah, criminally indicted is a surgeon called the Butcher Smith. In Arkansas too, in Florida. So yeah, we were getting into all that right there, and that you're all family. And you're including my own mother, Menominee, and her Lacour de Ray Menominee niece and nephew, who are incestors together, and Johnny's a pedophile. And moving in on Liz Nance and her daughter Carla, veteran son Castillo, who was in the military at the time, her grandson, where Chris Ring and Brent were planning your drugs as part of your city maintenance and inspection crew for Deputy Canine Fowler, Deputy Schmidt, and the others to find. And I was showing about Lori Ring at the Dane County Jail. I was showing, when Mendota and them wouldn't take part anymore in your sickness, that's when you took over and you renamed it Journey and everything, but it's the same old nasty crew. And I asked what they thought of Ken and the others massaging and everything else, your fraudulent martial arts and prospecting in the daycares and the boys and girls, etc. And in our healthcare, psych nurse, St. Mary's. And we're still getting into your female nurse that didn't belong at Meritor, kidnapped your sexual assault child. You arranged to kidnap me and to forcibly induce your sexual assault baby. And, yeah. Except they didn't get to hurt him to attribute to me because I fled to the Capitol Police. Unfortunately, they were closed. And see, I had powers of attorney, so you had no business withholding my utilities or anything. And you have no business checking the mail and preventing me from paying rent. And then being there to falsely arrest me to keep from going to your false court proceedings and from paying the rent at the city treasurer's office. And them and accounting have no business because you were fraudulently costing my income, making up triple billing, that, suspending transactions, theft of service. And we tried multiple ways, including the CBSO, CAC, that you extorted rent from, and you'd think that Horace O'Brien could at least get Jennifer's baby a coat, since he has a free license to drunk and drug drive around, shoot at people's houses, smash up vehicles, and stalk me with MPD and everything, and with my vehicles and all, and endanger us, including with law enforcement and falsely SWAT. You'd think that at least that bum could take the baby to get a coat in the winter. Alright? Yeah. So there's your CIC abuse and everything. Community shares, Art Shigoni, his wife Dawn. Art is a snake, and that's why the Menominees didn't want him. So yeah, and making illegal plans for Wolf River, Lake Superior, etc. They have no right to do. But there it all is right there. And your Schmidt's auto theft ring. And the releases showed places, tickets that I'd never been to, places I'd never been. And so suddenly we're going down the road, and roo, there's your cherries and berries, and you're falsely and taking court judgments. Yeah. So with all that rent you got, and then my church too, besides taking out of my account the money orders, that's what all the traces show, and your buddy Eugene was stalking like theft of service and trying to destroy evidence and continuing your crimes as authorities. Yeah. And I showed about stalking Tony Robinson, Bells, and the rest, just like you intend to still keep going and be trafficking Miss Bell's daughter, and you won't quit going at her support and everything, their family supports, and targeting her sons. And they won't be another Tony Robinson. Just like the Bear Girl in that setup event at Easttown. Just like Barbara and the rest of them trying to set me up, and the beating of Michael Faust. And him being run over and everything else. And you taking Chris Ring taking his medications out of that housing. Yeah. So anyway, it showed what you didn't want to get out about you misusing MPD and your FBI roles, your law enforcement misusing that with the other infestations fraudulently on us, that constant harassment and endangerment that's still going on. And so, yeah, Angela Ferguson, Angel's Joy, and their construction with Harold Ferguson, her relative, who was trying to strangle and murder his girlfriends and things instead of supporting them, just like their McGraw Wyandotte in-laws. And the same thing, Stephenson, McGraw, O'Brien, Keynes, and Chaim Meekums, that's Lorna's children, and Dawn Gardner Paul, the bisexual gang stalking with MPD at La Follette, their rape daughter, they incested, and externalizing her sexuality on my 14-year-old daughter, and there's the rape tape. So we're going to be seeing you, and you're going to show up, and so they're going to see your open looting, and that something needs to be done about the public danger, and then Nathaniel depriving him of nutrition, and that nurse from UW that wasn't supposed to be on the ward coming down the hallway that I surprised when I went to the kitchen to get ice for my girl parts after giving birth, and the excruciating torture there and during a blizzard, and for Christmas, just like police beating by Heimsness instead of rescuing my children that I have custody of, and you have the liberty of ignoring other legitimate judges who are obeying the law. Yeah, so that should be real interesting. In front of my rape children that they incested and were holding captive illegally by their child beaters and everything who incested them and made them in crimes. And obviously I can't give consent. I have representatives and I'm married to someone else, so they had no jurisdiction and no rights over me. And then receiving drugs and at the methadone clinic in a Section 8 house, and all your drug addicts and gang coming after us. And that right there, trying to destroy the backpack of evidence, just like trying to go after my car to keep me from going to the federal courts so you could detain me in the evidence. That's what all them disposable cameras that we kept sending out. So hitting up my internet didn't do you any good either. We still have the docs. We still have the witness to what you were doing. On the CDA key, no less. That you were holding me captive after kidnapping me under false pretenses. Flex cuffing me to a wheelchair and dragging me. And the same thing with your torture of my children and our animals too. And the false arrest and jailing and threats to my son Cody and Tony Shepard's pregnant daughter and their children. Yeah. And so there you are stalking me, and there you are at DOC parking lot too, and forming, and threatening, intimidating me. So that's why I took the video, and I led you first of all to Cockrell, and there you are backing off and abandoning her to get gang raped and tossed around like a rag doll and to hang herself. And had she survived, she now, congratulations, you got to her humanity, and now she's an object and a thing that you can use fraudulently for breeding and everything else under the guises of services and trying to help her. It's disgusting, just like Queen Angelique Price that Johnny OD'd and the others. And that was Sykes and Mandel sitting here talking about traces and then taking the backpack of equipment and dumping Michael at the bus, and then there's your MPD. Yeah, who are depriving him of his proper health care. And myself and others too, extorting us through our health care and billing sexual assault and everything else as health care, me and the VA. See that? And so, yeah. So there that is, and Sykes, there he is walking out of my unit that I fixed back up in spite of your blight, trying to extort from the churches and me, plus replacing with pressed wood and everything else and your shoddy materials. And Shia Vang's son having to turn down the gas that you tried to blow us up there, just like trying to gas us at Rick's fraud drug home in Lori Circle with Pam Gorman and all them, that they're their system opiate ring and everything else, and targeting the. It's right there. So all of that got out. So you're gonna black me out tomorrow. So make sure that you all sit there and watch this, especially you authorities, State Patrol and others, FBI and Homeland Security.